Okay, welcome to video 14, Fire Mouse. Now, you could kind of see how we could easily just start talking about a whole bunch of other stuff connected to this Mork and Mindy, but it'd be the very same thing that we've been talking about since we started talking about this Teotihuacan place. It's the very same thing we're talking about. And as I'm trying to show you Mork's connection now to Orc, which is then connected to Crow, and that symbolism that's going to give us that connection to that high place. You know, the Black Widow, the Queen of Heaven, the dude that looks like a lady. You know, the smoking mirror, which would then bring us back to who that worldly Tikal was. Remember, I connected him to another persona of this. It's the same deity, but just defined with a different name. But yet it means the same thing. He's given a different name, but the definition of that name means the same thing. It's that smoking mirror, which is connected then, as you can see, with symbolisms here of Venus, which is really not Venus at all. It's Venus as a symbolism of Lucifer, the light bearer, which would then symbolize their form of sin, right? Which then symbolizes itself now as the moon, which then we see is then connected to an ancient destruction that then quite possibly has lent itself to an observation from people on Earth that saw smoke coming from the moon in the ancient times. And then they tried to obscure that understanding and tried to say, oh, well, it was Venus. It was a one-time comet before, blah, blah, blah. The biggest load of hoopla BS I've ever heard in my life. Venus is the dudes that look like ladies that went to the moon, that then experienced destruction, and then that destruction was seen by observers from the Earth as smoke, in essence, hanging from the moon location. And I would imagine that would be making the symbolisms of a beard. In other words, that's why you would see Luciferians are always wearing those very long beards, at least in semblance, okay? So, you got to think about people like Manly P. Hall and all that kind of stuff, you know? So, the beard now turns into the smoke that then is connected to what? Like a comet, right? Which is then is connected to what? Fire from the sky. So where is that really fire from the sky coming from? From another sky to a thing, to a place that's in the sky? Yeah. Very well. And then we see it's been reflected back here by mistranslation, misunderstanding. And then, of course, these things cyclically repeat themselves on lesser and more higher reflections of the original manifest. So you'd have to look into that to know what I was talking about. If you don't know anything about Venus being considered an ancient smoking star, an ancient comet, and then you know that comet literally derives from the word coma, and then coma means hair. Check me on that. So we're talking about the same thing that we originally started talking about when we're looking at all this stuff, right? We're talking about the very same thing that we were talking about when we were talking about here. I'm about to show you how it's relative. Let's look at the caption right there real quick. Pyramid of the Moon, 46 meters high, overlooks a broad plaza at the northern end of the Way of the Dead. Keyword here, Way of the Dead, right? Trying to tell you it's connected to a structure. Trying to tell you it's connected to a trauma. I'm trying to tell you that it's connected to the darkened right eye of Horus, and then that darkened eye got that way from trauma, and the darkened right eye of Horus, symbolically, is the moon. So if this is the Way of the Dead, so to say, right? At least people that have been being destroyed there from an ancient past, right? For a multi-perspective reason. They've been destroyed because they've been planning on destroying other people. And then the people that were planning on doing destroying got destroyed by some sort of miraculous, supernatural intervention. And then this is where you get a double destruction, right? That's right. It's where you get a double whammy. So if it's the Way of the Dead, all right, let's think about the Giza necropolis that is connected with the bands of Orion, the three great pyramids of Giza, correct? Okay, well, that's a necropolis is what? A city of the dead, is it not? So we've already showed the same semblances here, at least of the sun being showed with what? A crow. And I said that represents symbolism for their dark prince, who was their dark sun god, who was then sealed on the moon, now becoming the frog prince, waiting for somebody to come up and kiss him again. Got it? So there's the sun and the moon all over again, right? So then we see Teotihuacan as semblance of what? Son of the moon. And then we see the pyramids of Giza are now connected to the bands of Orion, in which Orion has been sealed with bands somewhere, like chains, right? Right? And that would be at the moon location. We see he is in essence hung upside down. Saturn, Osiris, Orion is the sixth planet from the sun. Hang a six upside down turns into a nine, right? 69. And incidentally, Genesis chapter 6 is where the crossing of the genetics takes place. It's no accident that it's Genesis chapter 6. And then that 6 responsible for the crossing, hung upside down, turned into a 9. 69. Cancer. Right? So there's the sun and the moon. There's the semblances for who's connected to it. But it gets deeper than that. We're going to kind of get into it if we can. I just want you to see now that the Giza necropolis is a city of the dead. So the connection with where Osiris Orion is sealed is considered with the necropolis a city of the dead. We just saw Teotihuacan is in semblance as the way of the dead, and now I'm going to show you that this means the exact same thing. Let's take a good look at this middle portion here, and this is what they would be speaking about, at least the main focus of this journey that's to be undertaken. Let's read the caption. The famous painted silk. The famous painted silk banner from Tomb 1, Mawangadu, which illustrates the journey to immortality of the wife of the Marquis of Dai, was found on her coffin. It portrays the underworld, lower part, the earthly world, center part, and the celestial world, upper part, using complex and sometimes obscure symbols. The dead woman is shown standing in the center, her relations kneeling around her, calling her soul to return to its former abode. At the sides are two great dragons which act as intermediaries for the ascent to the celestial regions. Above them opens the door to the heavens, guarded by its faithful keeper, the Bat. In other words, Dark Prince. Batman, right? Right? So now the woman, as you can see, is being called what? The dead woman. This would be the way of the dead. It's the way of the dead starting all the way down here, is it not? And it starts out right here with these fishmen that fell and rebelled and then became known as these great ancient mighty bulls, who then mated with the daughters of men, who were then symbolized as cows or heifers. And it starts right there. You can see that underneath this location, we can see something is all down here in connection with it, even with the semblance of the serpent here. And then the semblance of the ancient fishmen, which are the exact same beings as the bullmen. But the bullmen are just symbolized as bulls after they've made the rebellion. The rebellion was mating with the daughters of men. Daughters of men were seen as cow. Now we see them connected as bulls. So look what they're sealed underneath right there. Is that not a pyramidion shape? Is this not considered the lower world? It surely is. It's the beginning of the way of the dead. This would symbolize ancient Egypt, the necropolis, in which Osiris Orion was sealed below. And then we see the descendancies themselves are being sealed above. Right? Absolutely right. So take a good look at this pyramidion and then imagine it being connected now to the below portion, the Giza necropolis, and then who is sealed underneath, being all connected by the original serpent influence. Look over here, the little owl on the right, the little owl on the left, right? All up under the pyramidion shape. So as we would move here, we see that the woman, now let's think about this. Dudes that look like a lady. Isis now represents the Jashon column. It represents all those secret society Freemasonic members here that are in essence connected to that symbolism of dudes looking like ladies. Well, they're telling you these ladies are what? Dead. That's what Jesus Christ said. That's what Jesus Christ said. That you are literally walking over, under, and around dead men. All those that ate that manna are dead. Right? Over and over, their God is the God of the dead. And you can see that, how it's connected to that. And you can see where Jesus has always been, in essence, trying to teach about that within his parable form, so that people could understand when this thing, in essence, reached a fruition, a fulfillment of that ultimate crime, of this original sinner, And then the motivation for the sacrifices that have took place by the mistranslation of the men that has sought after it for some form of ritual ceremony to turn themselves into gods, that people would understand and not make the same mistake